Hey, Chevy, what's going on? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Nun Zayin of Masechta Ayruvin, Daf 57. So, what do you guys think we're talking about today? Alright, calculating the quarter for the Levium, right? Like, remember, try to remember the area outside the cities of the Levium. So there was like 2,000 amos, kind of like Tchum Shabbos, but the thing is that there was the first 1,000 amos where they wouldn't actually like plant anything, and apparently that was 25% of something. We're trying to figure out what it's 25% of. We're going to talk about a karpath that is between cities. We kind of mentioned it the other day. We're going to mention it a little more today. And, well, without further ado. So Daf Nun Vav Mud Bey is 3 lines from the bottom. So yesterday we saw the opinion of Rava, who said that Bar Adam Shocha had explained to him how this 25% thing worked out. What is this 25% thing? So we had said that the Levite cities, so outside of the Levite cities, they would be allowed, so there was an area of 2,000 amos surrounding the city. The first 1,000 amos, they would just kind of leave open space, and then the second 1,000 amos, they could plant vineyards and fields. So then the Brisa, unfortunately for us, mentioned that this first 1,000 amos was 25%. The question is 25% of what? So Rava had said yesterday that basically it was that this Migrash area outside of the city had an area of 9 million square amos, which is a quarter of the total of 36 million square amos. So now we're going to see the opinion of Abaye, and then we're also going to see the opinion of Ravina and Rav Ashi. So here we go. Abaye Amar says Abaye Mishkachas Lanami B'mata Dahavya Alpha Be'alpha. Okay. So Abaye says you can also find that the Tchum of like the first 1,000 amos outside of the Levite cities, so you could find that that was 25% in the following way. So if you say, so yesterday we were assuming that the city was 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos. Abaye says that actually you can also find it if you say that the city is 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. Okay. Tchumin kama havu tmanya. So in this city that is 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos, and let's assume that it's a square, okay? So now the tchum is still going to be 2,000 amos. So basically, imagine you have this square city, and directly opposite the walls, you're going to draw a rectangle that's 2,000 amos long, and then the far side of the rectangle is going to be 1,000 amos wide, because that's the width of the wall of the side of the city. So basically, on all 4 sides of the city, you're going to have a rectangle that is 2,000 amos long and 1,000 amos wide. So the area of that, of course, would be 2,000 times 1,000, which is 2 million. Now, there's 4 of these rectangles. So, and that's what we're calling the tchumen. So 2 million times 4 is 8 million. Now, the corners are still going to be squares that are 2,000 amos by 2,000 amos. So 2,000 times 2,000 is 4,000. There is 4 million, and there's 4 of these corners. So 4 million times 4 is 16 million. Plus the total area of the space in between the squares, which we're calling the tchumen, that we said was 8 million. So 16 million and 8 million is 24 million. So tchumen kamahavu, how much are these tchum areas directly opposite the walls? Tmanya, 8. Kronis kama have, and the corners, what is their area? Shitzer, we just said it's 16. So that is 24. So, right, 8, 16 and 8. So, dal arba de tchumen ve'arba de kronis. Okay. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to get rid of the 4 of the tchumen and the 4 of the kronos. Right. So now, what you're going to do is, so remember, this city was 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. So if we're calculating how much the 1,000 amma area outside of this city was, right, the first 1,000 amos of the 2,000 amos of the Levium outside city area. So again, the city itself was 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. So directly opposite each of the 4 walls. So we're talking about something that has a depth of 1,000 amos, and we're saying that the city itself is 1,000 amos. So basically, it's going to be a square. Outside of each wall of the city is going to be a square that's 1,000 amos by 1,000 amos. So that times 4 is a total of 4 of these squares for 4 of the walls. So that's going to be a total of 4 million. Now, each of the corners also is going to be a square that has 1,000 by 1,000. So each of the corner has an area of 1 million times 4 corners is 4 million. So 4 million of the Tchumen and 4 million of the corners is a total of 8 million out of this 24 million. Okay. So Kamahave Tamanya, right? So 4 million plus 4 million is 8 million. So Tilsahabu, but still it's not 25%. It is only it's a third, right? 8 is 1/3 of 24. We need to get to 25%, not 1/3%. Well, really 33.3%. You know what I mean. Fine. So Tilsahabu. So now the Gemara says, but after all, misavad beribua ka'amar be'igula ka'amar. Yay! It's basically the same dance that we did yesterday. But wait a second. This city is not square, it's circular. Okay, so this city that was 1,000 amas was actually circular with a diameter of 1,000. Okay, which means that the area of the surrounding the city that we're talking about was an additional 1,000 amas on either side of this circle. So basically, you have the city is 1,000 amas diameter, and then you have on either side of the circle an additional 1,000 amas. So basically, you have the circle that has 1,000 amas diameter surrounded by another circle that basically has a diameter of 3,000 amas, right? 1,000 amas on either side of the city. So now, okay, so if we want to, so let's, what we're going to do is like the same thing we did yesterday. Basically calculate the area of the larger circle and then remove from that larger circle the area that the city takes up, and that will give us the area of the, of this 1,000 amas area outside the city. So basically, how do we find the area of the larger circle that's 3,000 amas in diameter? Well, slap a square around it, and that square is going to have 3,000 amas on every single side, and find the area of the square by doing 3,000 times 3,000. So 3,000 times 3,000 is 9 million. So the area of the square is 9 million, and we said that the assumption is that a circle would be a circle inside a square takes up 3/4 of the size of the square. So if the square has an area of 9 million, then the circle inside of it has an area of 6,750,000. Okay, fine. So that's the area of the larger circle, 6,750,000. Now, let's find the area of the smaller circle so that we can subtract it from the larger circle, and then we'll find the area of this area around the city. So the circle, we said, had a diameter of 1,000, which means we could put that inside of a square that has an area that has 4 walls that are each 1,000. So that gives that square an area of 1,000 times 1,000 is 1 million. So now 3/4 of a million is 750,000. That is the area of the city. So therefore, we're going to subtract the area of the city, 750,000, from the area of the larger circle surrounding the city, which we said was 6,750,000. So 6,750,000 minus 750,000 is 6 million. 6 million, the area, which is the area around the city, that first 1,000 amos around the city of the Levium, 6 million is 25% of the 24 million of the Tchum that we calculated before. Magic. So according to Abai, that's what the quarter is. It's the 6 million out of 24 million. So great. So second line of the Gemara, Misavart Biribua Kamar. Do you think that we're talking about a square? Be'igula Kamar, we're talking about a circle, a city that's circular and has a diameter of 1,000. Kama Meruba Yasser ala Igul. How much is a square larger than a circle? Revia, it is 25% larger than the circle. Tal Revia Pashulu Shisa. So if you basically do all these calculations of circles and squares, and you calculate the circles as being 75% of the square, so you will find that the area of the this 1,000 amma area surrounding the city, that has an area of 6 million. Vishisa michavdalad riva have, and 6 million is 25% of 24 million. Ravina Amar said Ravina my Ravia the Tchumen. So Ravina's take on it is that it is the Ravia of the Tchumen, meaning he goes back to the original assumption, which is that we're Pasha talking about a city that is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas. Okay, great. Now, if you were to take the area, calculate the area of this 1,000 amma area around the city, but only take the parts right outside the wall. So therefore, we said that the city was 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas. So now the part right outside the wall, we're saying is going to go a distance of 1,000 amas. But we're saying that the city itself is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas. So it's basically going to be a stretch that is 2,000 amas by 1,000 amas, because it only goes 1,000 amas outside of the city. That's what we're talking about. So 2,000 times 1,000 is 2 million. And you do that for all four sides of the city. So 2 million times 4 is 8 million. And now we had calculated the original area of the Tchumen to be 32 million, right? Because if you have a city that's 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, so the Tchum outside of each wall is going to be 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, which has an area of 4 million, and times all four sides, so that's 16 million, and then the four corners is also these same squares that are 2,000 by 2,000, so they each have an area of 4,000 times 4, an area of 4 million times 4 is 60 million, so basically 60 million and 60 million is 32 million, and we're saying that the part of this Levite area outside of the city that was 1,000 amas, so just the Tchumen part, not the corners, but the parts right outside of the wall have an area of 8 million, which is 25% of 32 million. That was what Ravina says. Rav Ashi Amar says, Rav Ashi, my Ravia de Kranis. Rav Ashi says that the quarter that we're talking about is the quarter of the corners of that 1,000 amas area relative to the corners of the entire Tchum, right? So Rav Ashi is also assuming that we're talking about a city that is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, okay? So the city itself is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, and if that's the case, so then we had said that in each corner of the city is going to be a square that is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, right? And then we said that the diagonal would be 2,800. So that square has an area of 2,000 times 2,000, which is 4 million. Now, if we just take the 1,000 amma area around the city, so the squares in the corners of right, so you have like basically the city is 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, and then it's surrounded by a square with like that's 1,000 amas around the first 1,000 amas of the 2,000 amas of the Levim. So in each of the corners is going to be a square that's 1,000 amas by 1,000 amas, which has an area of 1 million. So 1 million relative to 4 million is 25%. So we're saying that the corners of the first area outside of the Levite cities were 25% of the bigger Tchum, which their corners were 4 million. Okay. It's probably going to be helpful, like, if, I guess, you just find, like, diagrams and kind of, like, do it. Stuff is rough. Omer le Rabbanan le Rav Ashi. So now the rabbi said to Rav Ashi, Saviv ksiv. But 1 second, Rav Ashi, how can you say that it's only talking about the corners? The pasuk talks about the 1,000 amas surrounding these cities. So, my Saviv, what does Saviv mean? Saviv de Kranos. It means the around of the corners. What does that mean? The ilote machi, because if you don't say that this makes sense to say that the corner, or you could define around as being just the corners. Well, gabi ola, it says by a korban ola, dichsiv v'zarku es adam al mizbeach saviv. That by korban ola, you take the blood and you throw it around the mizbeach. The mizbeach, of course, was square. So what does it mean that you throw the blood of the ola around the mizbeach? Does it mean that you take like a super soaker, fill it up with water, and then start, like super soaking the mizbeach all around it with blood? Well, spoiler alert, no, they don't do that. So, hachinami saviv mamish, elamai saviv de kranos. What, do you think it really means all the way around the mizbeach with blood? No, it means the corners. Basically what you do is there's something called shtaim shehin arba. What that means is that they would take some blood and they would throw it on, let's say, I'm not exactly sure which corners, but like, let's say like the southeast corner. And they would throw blood on the corner. And when you throw blood against the corner, so some of it's going to splatter on each of the sides, right? Like, let's say, I don't know, what do we say, southeast or whatever? So like, some's going to get on the south and someone's going to get on the east. Then you do the same thing in the northwest corner. So you throw some blood on the corner, and then some of it's going to get on the north one, and some of it's going to get on the west one. So that's what around means. It just needs to get on the corners. So hachinami ma'saviv saviv dekranos. So here also, when we say the area around these cities, it's really just talking about the corners. Fine. Amle Rav Chavivi mechozna le Rav Ashi. So Rav Chavivi from Mechozna, he said to Rav Ashi, "Va'ika morsha de karnasa." So this is actually going back to what we had said yesterday, right? That we're talking about a city that is round, and then we'll like surround the area around the city for the Levium with like this area that's round. But we also said that we make the city into a square in order to calculate the tchum. So Rav Chavivi Mechozna, he wants to know how, if you're making the area for the Levium round, but you're also making the city square, well then the square is going to be eating into the round or surrounding the city. So, bimata igulta, but no, so we say no, but we're talking about a round city. Yeah, but I thought that they made it into a square for the tchum. I'll say that we just view it as though they make it into a square, but you don't actually make it into a square. You just, you just calculate what it would be if it were to be a square, and then you make the tchum relative to that, but there's not actually going to be a physical square. Okay, so now Rav Chanilai Mechozna, he's got this like interesting approach. He's basically arguing with Rav Ashi over here about like kind of Pythagorean's theorem kind of thing. He's got his own theory for how to calculate like the diagonal of a square. So basically, we were saying that if you have a square that's 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, so then the diagonal is going to be 2,800, which is pretty accurate. I actually did look it up earlier today. It's pretty accurate. So 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas, so the diagonal is going to be 2,800. And now Rav Chanilai from Mechoza, he wanted to make a different argument and say that, well, we were talking about initially that you can go, like, imagine we said that you would like have the city, and the city was 2,000 amas by 2,000 amas. If you were to draw a line from the corner on an angle and draw it 2,000 amas, we said that wouldn't be enough. It would have to be further, and we said that you'd have to draw it to 2,800 amas. Rav Chanilai from Mechoza wants to argue that, well, based on the idea that a circle is 3/4 the size of a square, well, then we'll say, well, initially, the city was like circular, right? And if when the city was circular, so then basically we would view the middle point as the center of the circle, and then when you would walk out to the end of the circle, you'd be walking 2,000 amas. But we're saying in order to get to the end of the point of the square, you would have to keep on walking. But if we're going to say that a circle is 3/4 the size of a square, well then basically all you have to do is add a third of the size of the radius of the circle onto that in order to get to 25% more, and that is what we're talking about. So basically, if you take 1/3, well, let's just zoom out for a second. Imagine you have 3 and you want to make that into 4, right? So 3, of course, is 3/4 of 4. So what do? You divide 3 you take a third of 3, which is 1, and you add it to 3, and that's how you get to 4, right? So here also, basically, if you have 2,000 amas, you want to figure out, if a circle is 3/4 the size of a square, so if you have the radius that is 2,000 amas, and we want to figure out how much do we have to lengthen it in order to get it to go into the corner of the square, well, what you're going to do is you're basically going to add a third of it onto it, and that's what the number is going to be. So a third of 2,000 is 666 and 2/3. So basically, it should be 2,666 and 2/3 amos. That should be the diagonal of the square. That is what Rav Chanilai from Mechoza wants to argue. So Amalei Rav Chanilai Mechozna the Rav Ashi Michte. Let's see. Kama Meruba Yasar La'igul. How much is a square larger than a circle? Revia, a quarter. Hani Tamne Mea Shismea Vishisin Visheva Nechit Plasa Have. So the diagonal of the square shouldn't be 2,800. It shouldn't be 800 more than 2,000. Rather, it should be 666 and 2/3. So Rav Ashi says, no, that's not correct. That calculation of a circle and a square, that's when you have a complete circle inside of a complete square. If you're calculating, however, the diagonal of a square, well then ba'ina tvei, it's going to be larger. To Amar we said, kol amsa b'ribua Amma vitrei chomshe ba'alachsona. So if you have an amma in a square, i.e. if you have a square that has an amma for each of its sides, well then the diagonal is going to be 1.4 ammas, and over here it's 2,000. It's not one amma, it's 2,000 ammas. So instead of being, let's say 1.4 or 1,400, it's going to be 2,800. New Mishnah. Don't worry, it gets, I would say, let's say a little bit easier, which I guess is still hard, but not too bad. Nosin karpa of the ear, divrei meir. So we had seen this the other day, that you, outside of a city, so according to a meir, what you do is when you're measuring the tchum, so when you leave the city, you first measure the size of a karpaf, which we know is 70 2/3 amas. So first you measure the size of a karpaf, and once you exceed the size of a karpaf, you then start counting your 2,000 amas. The Chacham say lo amru karpaf ela bein shtei ayaris. The Chacham say that karpaf is really only relevant between two cities. That when you have city A and city B and they're next to each other, so then the question is, if there is less than a karpaf between them, so then we consider it the same tchum. And then we continue, Im yesh lazo shiv amma v'shirayim v'lazo shiv amma v'shirayim osa karpaf es shtein lios echad. So we say that, so when we say that there's a karpaf between the cities, it actually means that each one gets their own karpaf, right? So basically, if you have 141 1/3 amas between the two cities, so that would be the maximum that you'd be allowed in order to still consider them to be the same tchum. More than 141 1/3 between the two cities would be too far away, and we would view them as two separate tchums. And similarly, gimel kfarim amushulashin. If you have three villages that are in a row, okay, im yesh bein shnayim achitzonim 140 ve'achas v'shlish. So if there is between the two outside ones 141 1/3, asa emtzai es shloshten lios echad, well then the middle one allowed all three of them to be one. So basically what we're saying is, if you have city A and then you have city B and city C, if the total space between city A and B and between city B and C is a total of 141 1/3, so then we can treat them all as one tchum. I was saying cities, I think, but village, kfar, like a village. And the Gemara is going to discuss what exactly this is. Minani mile, how do we know this idea of Reb Meir that we always give a city an area of a karpaf before we begin measuring the tchum? So Amar Rava says, Rava the Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Mikira ir v'chutza, from the wall of the city and outside. Amar Torah tein chutza v'achar kach madod. First give an area outside, i.e. like a karpaf area, and then count your tchum Shabbos. So the Chacham said that this idea of a tchum is really, this idea of a karpaf is really when you have two cities next to each other and we're trying to figure out, are they the same tchum or do they share a tchum or not? So that is when we look and see if there's a karpaf in between, and we're going to have to figure out, is this one karpaf or two karpafs? Itmar was stated, Rav Huna Amar, said the holy Rav Huna, Nosnin karpaf lazo v'karpaf lazo. So Rav Huna says that each city gets a karpaf. So if you have city A and city B and they're next to each other, so if between city A and B there is 141 1/3 amos, more than 141 1/3 amos, right, which is 70 2/3 times 2. So one karpaf is 70 2/3 amos. So if each city has 70 2/3 amos for their own karpaf, so a total of 141 1/3. So if there's more than that, well then they're considered too far away and they can no longer share a tchum. Okay? Chia Barav Amar Karpaf Echad L'Shtein. Because Chia Barav said that actually we're talking about one karpaf in between them. If between the two cities there is 70 2/3 amos, well then that's acceptable. More than that, we would consider them to be two separate tchums. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, that the idea of a karpaf, right, whereas Reb Meir said that every city gets a karpaf before we start measuring the tchum Shabbos, the Chacham say that no, karpaf outside a city is only significant when you have two cities next to each other. So then if there is a karpaf, if there's more than a karpaf between them, so then they are considered two separate tchums. Now that sounds like we're talking about one karpaf between the cities, just like Chia Barav, not like Rav Huna. So Tiyuvta de Rav Huna, let's say that this is a basically our Mishnah is against Rav Huna, who says that you would put 2 karpafs between the cities. So Amalach Rav Huna, my karpaf, Torah's karpaf. No, Rav Huna says that what does it mean karpaf? It doesn't mean literally one karpaf. It means the halachas, the idea of a karpaf. But lemaise, olam karpaf lezo, karpaf lezo. But in practice, what it means is that we're going to give each city their own karpaf. Hachinami mistaber, and this really makes sense. Because midikatani seifa, if you keep on reading in the Mishnah, what does it say? Im yesh lazo ayin ama v'shirayim v'lazo ayin ama v'shirayim ose karpaf l'shtein leos echad shma mina. So if you keep on reading in the Mishnah, it says that if each city has their own karpaf, well then we would still be, if there's a maximum of 141 and a third space, i.e. enough space for 2 karpafs between these 2 cities, we can still consider them the same tchum. But more than that, we would have to consider them to be separate tchum. So therefore, it seems pretty clear, like Rav Huna, that it's talking about 2 karpafs in between. So, well then let's say that it's taka, our Mishnah is against Chiyah Barab, who says that it's only 1 tchum in between. So, Amala Chiyah Barab will say to you, Hamani Reb Meir. So Chiyah Barav will say, no, that is the opinion of Rav Meir, right? Because Rav Meir said at the beginning of the Mishnah that you always give a city a karpaf outside of it, and then you start measuring the tchum. So here also, when you have these 2 cities, so each one gets their own karpaf. And so this is the opinion of Rav Meir. So the way you'd have to read the Mishnah is that Rav Meir says that a city gets its own karpaf, and then the Chacham argue and say, no, karpaf is only significant when it's between 2 cities. And then Rav Meir then picks up again and says that when you have 2 cities, each city gets their own karpaf. That is the way that Chiyah Barav understands the Mishnah. But the Chacham would say that there's only 1 karpaf between the cities. But Rav Meir Hatani le'reisha noslin karpaf le'ir div Reb Meir. But why would it be Rabbi Meir? Reb Meir was already in the reisha, and he said in the reisha that you give a city a karpaf before you start measuring the tchum. So therefore, here also, when you have 2 cities, and there's each one would get their own karpaf. Why do I need Reb Meir to reiterate the fact that each city would get their own karpaf? So the Gemara says, actually, it's tzricha. I do need Reb Meir to tell me in both cases that the cities get their own karpaf. Both an individual city and 2 cities that are next to each other would each get their own karpaf. Because the imeahi, if we would only have the reisha, where you have 1 city, so have a mina chad lechad v'chad letarte. So I would think, okay, well just like by 1 city, they get 70 2/3 amas. So I think also when there's two cities, right, it's still 70 2/3 amas, it's not 141 and a third. So kamash malan, dilatarte tre yavinon lehu. And therefore, he is letting, Reb Meir is also telling us that when there are 2 cities, they each get their own karpaf. And if he would only say that when you have 2 cities, they each get their own karpaf, but he didn't say anything about 1 city getting its own karpaf, well, that would be mishum didchika tashmishtayu. That's because, 2 cities really need some space in between them, and therefore, in order for them to be considered 2 distinct cities, or tchums, we would need, a whole area of 2 karpafs in between them. And if it's less than that, we would consider it the same tchum. Aval hasam delodchika tashmishtayu, but over there, where they don't necessarily, they're not like 2 cities on top of each other. It's 1 city, so it doesn't really need area outside of the city. So emalo, so I'll say that we wouldn't necessarily give it a karpaf outside of it. Karpaf is reserved for when there's multiple cities on top of each other. Tzricha, that's why Reb Meir needed to say that. No, even just 1 city gets an area of a karpaf outside of the city before we start measuring tchum Shabbos. Tanam, we learned in our Mishnah. Great. So we learned in our Mishnah that if you have 3 villages that are one after the other, okay, you got village A, village B, village C. Im yesh bein shnayim achitzonim mea ve'arboim ve'achas ama v'shlish osa emtzai shloshtan lios echad. So we said, so if you have city A, then you have city B, then you have city C, and you take the sum of all of the space between A and B and C. So as long as it is 140, a total of 141 and a third or less, so then you can view it all as 1 tchum. If the total is more than that, well then you have to view it as separate tchums. So taima deika emtsoi. So the reason why the Gemara wants to say that the reason why it's all considered 1 tchum is because there's that city there's the village in the middle that's dividing it up, and therefore you essentially have 70 2/3 amas in between each one. So you have village 1, 70 2/3 amas, village 2, and then another 70 2/3 amas, and then village 3. Haleka and say, but if that middle village wouldn't be there and it would just be 141 and a third amas from A to B, so, or really, from one to the other with no middle one, well then, lo, that would not work. So tiyuvta de Rav Huna, that sounds like a kasha in Rav Huna, who says that there is 141 and a third between, he would say that you would have 141 and a third between these two villages, but it sounds like that would not work. You need that one in the middle, dividing it in half. So Amalach Rav Huna would say to you, Ha'it Marallah, but one second, it was taught about this configuration. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Idi, Amar Rav Chanina, Lo Mishulash and Mamish. It's not literally three villages in a row, A, B, and then C. Ella, rather, ro in kol she'ilu matil emtsoi benein v'yu mishulashin, ve'im ben zo ze lazeh ella kuf mem hei ama ve'achas v'shlish, also emtsai es shloshin lios echad. You guys got that? Good. Let's move on. Kidding. So rather, says Rabba, so Rav Huna defends himself by saying that Rabba said the name of Rav Idi, said the name of Rav Chanina, that we're actually not talking about where it's city A, B, and C in a line. Rather, it's more like a triangle, okay? So it's a triangle. So let's say you have the base of the triangle with city A and B, and then city C would be the point of the triangle out in the distance. So we say that as long, A and B, which are the base of the triangle, they could actually be super far away from each other. I don't know, let's say 4,000 amas away from each other. They could be very far away from each other. Now, what we then do is that we have city C that is like somewhere out in the distance. And what we do is we view it as if city C was actually in line with A and B, even though it's not. But we view it as if it's in line with A and B. And then we look, I keep on saying city, but I mean village. Then we look and we say, okay, well, how much space would village C take up in between A and B? And if after we, imaginarily move village C in between A and B, and then there would be between A and C and between C and B 141 and a third amas between each of them, i.e. a total of 282 and 2/3, right? So if there would be 141 and a third from A to C, and then now that we're viewing imaginarily in a line, and then another 141 and a third between C and B, so then we would say that it would all be the same tchum. So rather, says Rav Huna, actually, when you explain it this way, that it's talking about a triangle, and we view it as long as there's, imaginarily there's between, the spaces can each be 141 and a third. Well, in that case, it's really no problem for me, because there's 141 and a third between each of these even imagined kind of in this imagined configuration. Amli Rava Abai. So it says Rava Tabai, or I'll read that inside. Right, so Amar Rabba bar Rav Idi Amar Rav Chanina lo mishulash and mamish. They're not mamish in a row. Ella, rather row in. We treat it as though, we see it as though kol she'ilu matil emtsai benen, as if you would take village C, which is out in the distance, and you would put it between A and B. V'yiyu mishulashin, and now they would be in a row. Ve'ein, right, it would be three in a row. Ve'ein ben zeh lazeh ela kuf mem ama v'achaz v'shlish. And now, after you imaginarily take C and slap it between A and B, and in between A and C, and in between C and B, each would have 141 and a third, i.e. a total of 282 and 2/3. So, so C, even by being out in the distance, enables us to view A, B, and C to all be one tchum. Okay, fine. Or at least A and B at least to be one tchum. So Rava says to Abai, Kama yehe ben chitzon ne'emtzoi. So Rava says to Abai, how far away can C be from A and B? So Amalei Alpai Mama. Abai says it could be up to 1,000 amas. So C could be 2,000 amas away in the distance. Ve'atu de Amar kavasi de Rava be de Rabba bar Rav Huna mistabra de Amar Yosem Alpayim Ama. But so then Rava asked Abai, but one second, Abai, you had said on Daf Nun Heumud Beis that when it comes to the city that is in the configuration of a bow, you paskin like Rava be de Rav Huna, who said that as long as the ends of the bow are within 4,000 amas of each other, well then the top of the bow can even be more than 2,000 amas away from like the end of, from like the bottom of the bow, where you'd go out to like Rosh Hashanah or whatever. So how come over there, Abai, you're saying that the bow can be more than 2,000 amas from, the end of it to the top of it, and yet over here you're saying that there's a maximum of 2,000 amas in this triangle configuration? So Abai answers, Mistavra de Amar Yosem Alpaim Ama. No, I don't know where I just read, but Kavase de Rabba Bar Rabba Bre de Rav Huna, the Rabba Bre de Rabba Bar Rav Huna Mistavra. You, Abai, had said that it's like Rabba Bre de Rabba Bar Rav Huna, the Amar Yosem Alpaim Ama, that it could be more than 2,000 amas from the top of the bow to the end of the other end of the bow. So Abai answers, Hachiyashta Hasam, over there, Ika Batim. Over there, however, by the bow, there were houses throughout, right? You can go to the end of the bow, go to the house all the way at the end of the bow, and then walk all the way through houses and courtyards and stuff until you get to the top of the bow. Hacha, but over here, Leka Batim, it's just open space between these villages. So therefore, they have to be within a tchum, they have to be within 2,000 amas. V'amalei Rava Labai, and Rava said to Abai, Kamye ben chitzon lechitzon. How far away can A and B be? So, Kamye, so Abai says, what do you mean, how far away can they be? Ma nafkalach mino, who cares? Kol shilu machnis and tzoi benein, vein ben zelazeh elamer barboim ve'achas ushlish. Abai said, look, we said, doesn't matter. A and B can be however far away they want. As long as when you take C and you put it in between them, the distance between A and C and the distance between C and B is a maximum of 141 and a third each, so then we could view it as they are all the same tchum. So it doesn't matter how much of a distance is there as long as C is going to fill up the space. So vafilu dalet alaf mama. Rava says it can even be 4,000 amas between them. Amalei, and he says, yeah, sure. Ve'amar Rav Huna ira asuya kekeshes emyesh bein beis roshel pachas me'arbas alaf mama modin la min hayeser v'imlav modin la min hakeshes. But 1 second, Rav Huna had said that when it comes to the city that's a bow, there's a maximum of 4,000 amas width. So why don't we say here as well that there's a maximum of 4,000 amas between A and B? So by answers, hasam leka lememar mali, hacha ika lememar mali. Right? So Abai says, yeah, but over there by the bow, there was nothing to fill in the space with. Over here, we have city C that we could say basically fills in all the space between A and B. And therefore, we can view it as though it's filled in and it's all one tchum, even if it's more than 4,000 amas away, since we're going to take C and shtup it in the middle. Amle Rav Safra l'Rava, says Rav Safra to Rava, Harei b'nei Akistifon. But 1 second, we have the people of Akistifon, the Mashchina lu Truma mehai gisa de Arshir. The Ardashir. But you have the people of Akistifon that they consider their Tchum Shabbos to end only after the city of Ardashir. Uvnei de Ardashir, Mashchina lu Tchuma mehagisa de Akistifon. And the people of Ardashir, they only consider their Tchum to begin after they pass Akistifon. Ha'ika diglas de mafsko yoser meimea v'arboim v'achas v'shlish. But 1 second, in between Akistifon and Ardashir, there is the Tigris, and the Tigris is more, the Tigris River is more than 141 and a third amas. So nafach achvele hanach at mahasa deshura de mavlae bediglas be'ayin amas v'shiraim. So Rav then went outside and he showed Rav Safra that actually, right, there are these like walls. Amahasa deshura, there's these walls, the mavlae bediglas be'ayin ama v'shiraim. Actually, they're within 70 and 2/3 amas of Akistifon, and within 70 2/3 amas of Ardashir, there were actually these walls that were in the Tigris, and therefore actually it was considered that either that was like once upon a time the end of the city, or just between each of the cities and those walls there was less than 70 and 2/3, and then basically there was never more than 70 and 2/3, and therefore that was actually acceptable. So it wasn't actually more than 141 and a third. Well, Chaver, that was Daf Nun Zayin. Hope you enjoyed that. So let's review a little bit. So at the beginning we talked about calculating the 25% for the first 1,000 amos of the area outside the Levite cities. We had Abai who said it's talking about a city that's 1,000 by 1,000, and the 25% was if you if you do the whole circle thing and reduce it from the square, so it becomes like 6 million from 24 million. Ravina said that it's talking about only the areas right outside it. So it's talking about a city that's 2,000 by 2,000, but it's just the area right outside walls. Rav Ashi said that it's just talking about the corners. Fine, then we talk about a karpaf that's between two cities. The main machlokas there was really between Rav Huna, who says that it would be two karpafs between the cities, and Rav Chia Barav, who says that it's just one karpaf in between the cities. Okay, and then we tried to bring a proof from the cities that were in the configuration of 3 in a row, but then Rav Huna basically gave an opinion that it's actually talking about a triangle, and you view it as if one of the corners of the triangle is like the points of the triangle is like in between the other cities. Chaver, peace out.